Hello and welcome to the Dancing Heart podcast with Torny. This podcast is meant to inspire you to follow your heart and dream big. In today's episode, I have invited my dear friend Martin Diaz. Martin is an empowerment and self-love coach for the gay and queer community. He is identified as gay, and in this episode, Martin shares his story on how it was to grow up being gay in a Latin household, how it was to come out to his friends and family, and how he turned his biggest struggle, being a people pleaser, not loving himself, into his purpose by going on his own self-love journey where he learned how to fully accept and love himself. Get ready to tune into this powerful episode with Martin Diaz, who has such a loving and beautiful energy. I'm so excited to welcome him on the show. Welcome to the Dancing Heart podcast, Martin Diaz, my brother
Thanks
from
for
another
having
mother.
Seriously. And you're living in my motherland, actually. So even another connection there.
I think
But
so.
thanks for having me. Thank you so much. I know we recorded one of these a while ago, and then, I think we decided to re-record because we were just different people now, even
We
just
were.
a few months a few months back.
It's funny how we keep evolving, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And we be like, yeah, let's just do it again.
Yeah, I feel like it'll be even more authentic to who we are right now, right? If we do it again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Martin, you know the question,
Mhm.
what makes your heart dance today?
Well, today, I think what made my heart dance the most was my mom. We had a lovely conversation, um, and I think I've just seen how much growth I've done, because we didn't always have the best relationship. Um, and just seeing, I don't know, there was just this huge sense of gratefulness and respect that I had towards her today. That was just, I don't know, super magnified. So I think that really made it flutter. It was like breakdancing, twerking, everything. My heart.
I love that. With your Mama Diaz.
Hey, mama, yes. Yes, yes. And
Amazing.
usually, also on a more regular basis, my wonderful, amazing, beautiful little daughter, Selena, my little puppy, she always makes my heart dance
I
first
know
thing in the morning.
she's the cutest. When her
Yeah.
tail is dancing, your heart is dancing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, it's just she looks over at me and then it wags. It's just the happiness is contagious.
I love that. It's about the small things, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's
Exactly.
great. Yeah. Okay, Martin, can you tell me a little bit more about yourself and your story so we get a little bit of background?
Yeah. So, I was born in Mexico and I immigrated to the United States when I was 3 years old. I lived in San Diego for most of my life. I grew up in San Diego, so I say I'm from San Diego, which is still little Mexico. It's just right across the border. The culture is very prominent here, the Mexican culture. So it was like growing up in the United States, still heavy, heavy, big, deep roots to my culture, right? And I would see my family all the time.
With taco
Um,
stands, taco trucks.
yeah, we have a lot of those here. We
Amazing.
have a lot of those. Um, and I think one of my biggest defining things, and something that has kind of put me on the track of my purpose was the fight with my sexuality that I had growing up, right? So I identify as gay, and I knew from a very young age, right, that I was a little different, and I kind of quickly learned that I was gay just by observing my cousins, because I was an only child until I was 14. So it was a lot of cousins and my friends from school and just like things on TV where I was like, oh, I like this more than that. Um, but coming from Mexico, and just Mexico has, Catholicism in its DNA. So even if you're not religious, people still have that kind of thought process, and they're very conservative in some of the views. So I always hid it, right? And my sexuality, I mean, and it was just an internal battle that kind of defined a lot of my youth. Um,
Mm.
and so, besides that, though, I feel like I had a very fun childhood as much as I could, right?
Yeah.
Um, I used to love art and to dance and just like being outside, right? I would love to go outside and play with my friends. Um, Also, it was a different time where we didn't have any phones, so it's we would
Completely
love more to
different.
go outside, right? Um, so I grew up in San Diego, and then you know I stayed there for school. I went to college there, and I was like on track to have this corporate life. I kind of was in this people pleasing cycle where I was trying to do everything to get validation somehow, right? Even after I came out of the closet when I was 20, I still was kind of wanting to prove myself to other people and get that validation, right? To feel accepted and so that I could accept myself, right? So I don't know, I kind of felt like I was in just an autopilot for a long time. I mean, it was a very fun autopilot, right? I would go out
Yeah.
and I had a lot of friends, and on the outside, it seemed amazing. But on the inside, I kind of knew that this was not what I was supposed to be doing, right? So that my inner child was kind of still like basically telling me what the fuck is going on. It was taking control, right? It was
Mm.
basically taking the wheel of my life. Um, and it wasn't really until I made like the first decision for myself that I wanted to do, where I was not putting other people's opinions and their feelings into consideration, that everything kind of started to change little by little, which was I decided to move to New York with my job. So my corporate job moved me out to New York. And growing up, I always wanted to move to the East Coast, right? Being a West Coast boy, I wanted seasons, and I wanted, you know, like to meet people from all over the world, and the grass is always greener, right?
Yeah.
So it
That's
finally
it.
came true. So then it finally came true, and I don't know, like I feel like I was like filled with life, like I felt like how I felt as a little kid, when I was like when I was just in my flow, playing or drawing, just doing art, something, right?
Mm.
And it lasted a while, right? When I was there, but then I feel like the pendulum was swung in the other direction really fast, right? It got really dark. I got back into, you know, bad habits. Like when I was still in San Diego, it was like very much in the quote unquote gay scene, right? You'd go out and drink, party. That was the weekend. It was the gay hamster wheel, I like to call it, because it's like Friday happy hour, and then you go out, and Saturday brunch, and then Saturday go out, and Sunday brunch. It's just never ending.
The gay hamster wheel. I never heard that. That's new.
uh,
Yeah.
I don't know, that's what I call it, because it was just it's the same thing every week, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I quickly picked that up over in New York. Um, and then COVID hit, right? And I think even though it was a time of just such horrific tragedy all over the world, it was still there was still a lot of good that came from it. I'm very grateful for that time that I had to myself to reflect. Um, I feel like I had an awakening of sorts, and I realized, enough is enough. And I basically told myself, okay, I got to change my life slowly, but I got to change something, which
Mm-hmm.
is when I decided to quit my corporate job. Um, I decided, I basically went in search of my purpose at that point, because I knew that selling a medical device was not my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I loved it, I felt like I was helping other people, and I just knew that it wasn't it.
You just had this inner knowing that was something else for you.
hmm And, as I'm sure you know, you kind of go in search of like, okay, who's going to be like my guru, a mentor, or something. You're just like trying to learn, 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 learn. I feel like a common thing that everybody mentioned in finding your purpose was that it's usually tied to something you've been repressing or something, that something from your shadow, something that you just don't want to look at, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times it's tied to that. And so I knew that it had to come back to my sexuality at some point, right? And at that point, I was very comfortable expressing my sexuality and being out and everything. But there were still parts of me, right, that had been repressed, and there were still parts of me that I hadn't healed, um, that were tied to my sexuality, right? And so that's when I found the coaching certification, which is where you and I met,
Yeah,
right?
I know. Thanks to COVID, we
uh,
have this conversation today.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I went about I got certified, um, and now 2 years later I'm here. Um, so I work, as you know, mostly with queer community, with gay men, and I'm a self love and empowerment coach, and so
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of and everybody needs this, right? But I know the gay male experience, and so I feel like I connect to them more.
Of
But we
course.
all need some self love and to kind of come back to our power, right? Which is that loving
That's
ourselves is and accepting ourselves.
that's what it like accepting all parts of ourselves, not
Hmm
just like the good parts that we see as the good parts. So I think like what you said about you came out when you were 20,
hmm
but you always knew that you had this feeling of like you had something was different. And you went into this people pleasing loop where trying to
hmm
find validation from external sources. Can you like why do you think you people pleasing is such like common for not just for gay or queer people, but in general?
hmm
Why do we want to search for the validation outside ourselves?
Well, I think it all starts in the home, right? You see it from your parents. And they're the ones that kind of teach you, even though they might not teach you directly and tell you, okay, this is what you need to do. You observe and you see how they treat each other. You see how they treat other people, right? And and a lot of this is handed down, right? And so, our parents are like this because their parents were like this, and their parents because their parents, and so now I understand that. But I think it's super prevalent when you have a very commanding, domineering force in the house. Usually it's one of the parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know that's the case for me, where almost everyone else revolved around their feelings, or they, everything was kind of contingent on how they felt. And so when they start to nudge you in a certain direction, right? Your parents are tell you, oh no, that's for boys, oh no, that's for girls. You kind of start to understand or like learn, okay, is it like there's a confusion at first, but then when they get mad or they get physical or they yell, then that's when like, okay, I don't like that. I don't want that to happen again. So I have to do this, right? So they almost condition you, they train you like a little puppy to do that.
Mm.
Um, and when you don't have, at least for me, a safe space at home, where I never felt like I could trust fully my parents in that way, at least with that part of myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then I just started to, it was like a cycle at that point. It started with not getting them upset, and then as you get older and you go to school and you start to get all these like awards and stuff, and they start teasing you at school, I almost wanted to prove everybody wrong, or like, okay, even if I'm gay, I can, if I overwork and if I overachieve, then I'm proving to you and to me, and that I'm worthy, right? That I'm still a good person. Um,
Exactly.
so it's just a cycle, right? And then it's at work, and then it starts because you're just kind of programmed that way now. You do it with everything, with everyone.
It's like an autopilot.
Uh-huh.
You
Yeah.
just go into it and be like, oh,
Mhm.
hey, what am I doing? Where, like, who's the most important person here? Definitely not
Exactly.
myself, right?
Yeah, and also add the Mexican culture where they tell you family's number one, always listen to your parents. Your parents, are the bosses. So it adds another layer, right? Because in unconsciously, I knew that I should have prioritized myself, and it's me, and I have my own values come first. But then when you start to prioritize yourself, it's like you're going against the family. You're going against like what you were taught as a kid. And so it's almost a little it's more jarring, you're like,
Mm. So how was it for you, like with the Mexican culture, and maybe it's not validated to come out as gay, it's not something
mhm,
that your family expected.
mhm.
Uh, but and you said you were 20 when you came out of the closet. So can you like how was it? Like you since you've been knowing it for such a long time and you've been holding it in, like did you like how was it? How was the experience?
So I mean it was eating me up, right? But growing up, I told myself I'm never gonna come out. I can hide this, I can do this, right? And I was always myself, right? Like I always liked the Spice Girls and Britney Spears and just everything super feminine. Lisa Frank,
Yeah.
you know. And for the listeners, I just showed my Lisa Frank phone cover.
Phone
But
cover, pink, colorful.
yeah. So I was always myself, but I would just say like, oh, I like girls and I want to have a family, which I do, right? But it was just I was like pretending for a long time, and it was fine up until college. I was in a fraternity in college, and that's when I was like, first of all, I joined a fraternity to make friends, and I didn't had no idea what I was getting myself into really, because I was like the hyper masculine American club, where it was just like, oh yeah, let's drink, bro, and this and let's fuck bitches. And I was like, oh, like the worst.
Oh my God, I
I
can
met some amazing I met some amazing people though.
yeah.
Everybody, they were all good guys. It's all a big facade, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they're also putting up a front because that's what they were taught was what being a man
What's
was,
the
right?
cool stuff?
Mm-hmm. But it was because of the fraternity that I was like, okay, I have to come out because I started smoking weed. Um, and it was just, it made me think, right? That I was like, oh my gosh. Every time that I would get high, that's what I would think of. It's like, oh my God, I can't stay in the closet forever, right? And so at some point I decided to like slowly come out and to my friends, and they were super accepting. And then, from there it got a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
But I hid it for so long because you know it was I was taught that being gay was wrong growing up,
Of
right? And
course.
that gay people, it's a sin, and they all get AIDS and they're all gonna die, and you're scared of it too.
Of course, you had all of these beliefs that were, how do you say it? Like shipped down to you? Like, how do you say that?
Uh-huh.
Like
Handed down.
handed down
They
to
were they
you.
were given
And
they were given to me.
yeah, so you started to believe that.
Mhm.
So in this situation, did you have any other gay friends by that time that you get supported from, or did you talk with your friends first? So you just had to
Uh
figure it all out by yourself.
yes. I hadn't met gay people, but it was always just like a undercover hookup where they were also not out of the closet. Um, but I didn't have any gay friends. I avoided gay people, and like that's also another thing, there's always that the internalized homophobia. So all these things that were handed down to me, I believed, right? And so I rejected. everybody that was outwardly gay and out, and I would try not to hang out with them, or not to hang out with them for too long, or not to become friends or whatever. So when I came out, I was just kind of navigating it on my own, and I came out to my straight friends, and they were all accepting for sure. A lot of them were also women, so
Mm-hmm.
it makes it easy. I've always been more comfortable around women for sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Is that like a main thing with the before you like gay people or gay come out? Like in your case, do you think so?
It was for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I was more comfortable. I know quite a few gay men also that didn't have any girlfriends, and they had more guy friends. Usually they're the ones that are a little bit more sporty, or they have more things in common with them. I had nothing really in common with the guys. Except drinking. Except drinking. We love
Yeah,
to drink.
of
But
course.
other than that, I never liked sports or anything.
Mm. Yes, I see.
Hmm.
So then you came out to your girlfriends first or your friends,
Hmm.
and you got the support before you told your family.
Yes. It was a while before I told them, maybe a few months, but it was actually because I was dating this guy from France, and I was just kind of like inspired. I was like, you know what? Like, I'm just gonna come out. I'm just gonna do it tonight. I blurted it out, and it was not easy. It was.
You blurted it out like,
I just kind of like
yeah,
said it.
okay,
in
I'm gay.
it-
There you
yes,
go.
it was. We were already kind of having a heated conversation, and so it just kind of came out. And it was to my mom first. Um, and it was like, oh my gosh, we're good now, but it was not okay at the beginning. She was very upset and sad, and it was she cried like I was shot in front of her, or I was like murdered in front of her. The pain, you could hear it.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, now I understand that in her head, the idea of her son that she had, right, did die, right? And
Yeah, the version that
but
she had in her head.
mhm, I see that now, but then I was very upset.
Of course, you
um,
didn't understand.
mhm.
Like, hey. Hmm. But how long took it to get the actual like okay acceptance and support?
Well, it's still like a work in progress to this day.
Mm.
Um, but it was maybe 6 months for it to kind of start to get back to normal, to how it was between us. But even now, I know what her beliefs are. I know like how she thinks, and she probably still. It's not like my sexuality is celebrated, right? Um, and there was a long time where I resented that. I was like, why not? Like, why can't you just understand? And why? I would just like hold that against her for so
Hmm.
long. But like, I don't know, there was just reached a certain point where I was like, you know what? It's only hurting me. I'm not going to change her. I still want a relationship with my mom, right? And um, if I bring a guy home, if I get married, if I have kids, they're going to come first, right? And if she doesn't really accept that part, then it's um, it's for her that's going to suffer a little bit more, right? Because she's going to be missing out.
Mm.
But to me, she's my mom.
She always gonna be your mom, so
Yeah, yeah.
maybe you should start celebrating it now for this year and onwards. Like, okay, the day you came out, like let's have like a 10 years and 15 years anniversary, like piñatas and tacos and
That's a good idea.
yeah.
I'd have to remember what the date was. I don't have it.
Yeah, you have. I'm sure your mom will remember.
Oh
If
God,
you
right? It's like
remember.
marked in her calendar.
Yeah, probably. Oh my gosh. So you said like when you moved to New York, you had this,
Hmm.
okay, I need to change something. Something need to
Hmm.
change. So why do you believe that you had that moment? What was that moment like?
Hmm.
When did you understand? Like, how did you have this awakening? Like, suddenly like, hey, something needs to change? Did you just wake up one day and be like, yeah, something needs to change right now?
I think it was like a slow burn, a slow process. Like I, um, even before COVID, I had been kind of sensing that there was more to life, to my life that I wanted to do, right, than how I was living it. And I think, like I said, once COVID hit, we had a lot of time to reflect, just go inward. You know, a lot of shit was going on in the world. And that's all you can really do, right? Is like think. Like our life was on pause for a while.
I know.
Um, and you know, I have to give a little credit to a friend, Gabby, who she basically explained almost how the world works, you know, or how we work, that we are basically souls having a human experience, right? And you kind of hear it and you're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But at the
Mm-hmm.
moment, I mean, it was during COVID, like when it was explained to me again at that moment, it just all made sense, right? And I don't know, it was like a awakening of sorts where I
It
was
just
like,
hits.
yeah. And everything made sense. My whole life made sense. Everything that had led up to this point made sense. Um, and that's when I knew, I was like, okay, this is almost like what I had been waiting for to change it around. Because if you know there is more to life and there I am the creator of my destiny, right? Like I can write, I'm the author of my life, then it's then I'm gonna change it right now, right? Like I'm gonna write at me a new story, right? Because what I had been living just wasn't working for me. And I thought, okay, I moved to New York and I was feeling so amazing because I was finally doing things for myself. Then I have to do more of that. And so that's when I started, you know, searching for my purpose and searching for what else I could do, right? And almost like refinding myself.
Nice. So how long
Mhm.
was that process for? I know it's
I
an
mean,
ongoing
it still
process,
goes
but
on.
I know.
I mean, it's like 3 years and counting, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so
But you
it's
changed your career and everything now. So now it made you to this point where you are now, where you're helping other
mhm.
queer people to love themselves and
Yeah,
to discover their purpose, right?
yeah. You just also like find that inner peace that we just don't grow up with, you know, and create it for themselves.
How do you
Um,
create inner peace for yourself?
oh my gosh, it's a whole morning regimen of 5-hour routine.
Okay, take me through it.
No, I'm kidding. But no, but I have to have that self-care in the morning, right? I can't just get up and go straight to whatever I'm doing, even if I do love what I'm doing for now, right? I always have to fill my cup in the morning and have me time.
Yeah, the morning me time, it's like
Mhm.
non-negotiable.
Yeah, but it looks a little bit different for everybody,
Of
right? For
course.
me, it was kind of what we spoke about earlier is letting go of the people pleasing and really starting to do things for myself. Um, but for, you know, other people, it could look completely different. And so what I do is just prioritize myself. I make decisions based on my what I value, right? And what's important to me. Because if I make a decision that based on that, I can't really go wrong, right? And I I also am very into human design and make my decisions based on my authority.
Oh, and your
I
what is your authority?
have an emotional authority, which that also when I learned about human design, I was like, oh my gosh, it all makes sense now. I'm super impulsive. I'm a Sagittarius, so super impulsive, a lot of fire in my chart. And that I always got into trouble for making decisions right away. Also, you know, people pleaser in me always wanted to say yes. And so that's another thing that cultivates the inner peace, is taking my time to make decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I can totally relate to that. I'm also emotional authority. At once when you were like, "Oh, yeah, of course, I need some time to make some decisions." Like,
mhm,
and then you just want to be impulsive and, "Yeah, of course, I want to do that." And then it goes the next step like, "Why did I say yes to that?" You know.
yeah,
So, yeah, I can totally relate. So that is a big part,
100%,
knowing your authority, how to make decisions.
100%. Um, and I think another big thing is just being grateful, right? And everybody kind of tells you all these gurus like, oh, have a gratitude practice and be grateful for this and for that, but they tell you for a reason, right? Um, I remember when I first started, it was a little, all of these things seem weird at first when you do them, like affirmations and your meditation, and because it's that part of your brain that, like, well, first of all, it doesn't like change, right? They
Mm-hmm.
don't, sometimes they like don't believe it. Um, but I think the more that you do it, the easier it gets. And I don't know, be looking at a shirt that I wore a couple days ago when I had a nice memory of something, and then be filled with gratitude at that, right? And I think it's just beautiful to kind of see life in a different way, you
Mm-hmm.
know, especially growing up far from being grateful for anything, right? I grew up in hypervigilance, so I was always like on alert,
On your
so
tippy toes.
there was like no chance to kind of sit and appreciate and celebrate where you were or anything like that.
Mm. Yeah, gratitude is super important, and like making the changes like in your mind is really like, hey, what are you doing now to the ego, you know?
Yeah.
It's I'm introducing you to something new. Like, let's try this. And as you
Hmm.
say, it everything becomes easier when you do it a lot, and then it becomes a part of you, and then you'll be like, who were I even before this?
Hmm.
You don't even remember.
Yeah. And you can see the change pretty quickly, I
You
think,
can
it's just a matter of you deciding to do it. It's a
changing the
matter of
habits.
you, of just the level of commitment that you have, right? Because that's also something that I've learned in trying to achieve your goals is, doesn't matter how motivated or inspired you are, that goes away. That's a feeling. It's about the commitment and the discipline that you have to that goal that's going to get you there.
Yeah, totally. You need a little bit of the masculine and also the feminine, like the balance of
Yeah,
how to, we can't just have
100%.
one or the other. That is totally. So, how do you, like, now that you have gone through all of the stages in your, from feeling different to coming out
Mhm.
to discovering your purpose, to come back to yourself and to let go of the people pleasing and really embrace yourself and like loving yourself for who you are? Like, what is the most, what it has been the most like transformational thing to come back to the point where you are now? Like, what was the most important thing, would you say, to
I
your,
think just the way that I show up in my relationships has changed a lot, right? Um, because you can only show up or love them as much as you're loving yourself. And so I think by fostering that kind of relationship with myself, I'm able to have deeper relationships with other people. Um, and it also comes with losing or kind of drifting apart from relationships that weren't meant for you or that were meant to last, but it really strengthens the ones that were meant to be there, and you create new ones more consciously. So I think that's been a big thing for me, because growing up, I always felt super alone, and so having a community of people now is kind of is healing my inner child to the max.
Yeah.
um, I would never ask for help, and now I'm, I'm getting there, but I'm more lenient to and willing to ask for help because I know that there's people that I can rely on. So
That's
that's been great. It's just the relationships that I've formed, and you included, of course.
thank you. You as well. I mean, we everybody needs support, and it's such a sad feeling to to go through something and you feel so alone and you don't have anyone to share or to talk with because nobody is talking your language. And support and relationships, it's just so important to have somebody that supports you. And
Yeah.
now you, so what is your like daily practice that you're still, it's an ongoing process, right?
Hmm.
So what is the
Hmm.
most important thing you do in your day-to-day life right now to really to evolve
Hmm.
like into this?
Well, the things that I do for myself, like I was mentioning earlier, that it's my morning routine, right? I have to, well, I don't have to, but I definitely see the difference when I don't do it regularly. But I like to come to kind of be present first thing in the morning, um, because my head kind of it as soon as I open my eyes, my head is just go right. It's just like planning the day, thinking about yesterday, all of it. So I always the first thing is I come back to my body, right? So I usually do that with breath work. I do
Mm-hmm.
breath work in the morning. Um, Sometimes if I'm not in the mood to do breath work, I'll do some sort of movement, some like more intentional stretches, maybe a little bit of yoga. Sometimes if I'm feeling extra frisky, I'll dance.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll do a little, just like I'll put on like some EDM song, some like tropical house kind of something, and I just start moving. And that's really good. That's also, I feel like, when I need to move something out of me, as I like to move that in that way. And then I like to write. So I'll take out my journal, and it's just like a brain dump, right? That's also another way of me for me to get my thoughts out and my anxieties out, um, plan my day a little, um, and also celebrate myself. So a lot of it is gratitude and things that I did well and things that I liked about the week or the day before. So there's a lot of that.
That's great.
And
And I
yeah,
think it was just so beautiful is that like celebrating yourself, like that's so important. Celebrate how far you come. Like we should celebrate ourselves every single day.
I agree. Even, the smallest things.
I know.
Sometimes I'm like, sometimes I like celebrate me going to the gym in the morning as opposed to at night, or going to the gym instead of going on a run, or going to the gym at all, right? Whenever I do something that I'm not in the mood to do, I celebrate myself. And
Yeah. Yeah,
you
for
have
listening to
to.
your body.
You have to, right? You have to, because then who's going to do it? It feels
Mm-hmm.
better when you do it to yourself, and when it's just kind of that's the self-talk that you have is more positive.
Mm,
It's just better, right? And
of
so
course.
you have to get into that practice of doing it for yourself, because that's when
To
it really matters.
that's what it really matters. So you don't have to go outside of yourself to search
Mhm.
validation. That's what you did earlier, right?
Yeah, which obviously when I hear it from other people, it feels great too.
Of
But
course.
but I don't need it, right? Like I don't go out and search, and it's not something that I need anymore to feel complete, because I
Mm,
have that. I know I'm complete now without it, with or without it.
mm, that's great. So you're also that's amazing. So you're coaching other queer people
Mhm.
to come back to their self-love and stop people pleasing to really to start loving themselves. So what is like the main issue for the people that are coming to you? Like what are they coming to you specifically?
Mm. Well, a lot of it is people pleasing, right? And I feel like everything branches off. I always joke that when you are born gay or queer, there's like 10 trauma buckets and you pick five and then that's your life. You can take your pick, right? But it also comes back to shame. It
Mm,
stems from the shame that you feel as a little kid that you internalize. And so, shame shows up differently for everybody. For me, it showed up with the people pleasing, right? Um and so that's what I think I help my clients with the most.
mm,
But with the people pleasing, right, there's confident issues, self-esteem issues, valid that self-validation issues, that kind of branch off from that. And so I would say wanting to prioritize themselves and get that confidence to kind of create their own life is the biggest thing that
mm.
people come to me with. Um, and just wanting, not wanting to care what other people think and prioritizing everybody else before themselves.
Amazing. I also know that you are supporting parents after their kids
Mm-hmm,
have come out of the as a gay.
mm-hmm.
So you are not only on you're also on the other side because you know what your mom went through, so you can support other parents as well, right?
Yes, exactly. That's actually a new offering that I just started to offer a couple of months ago. And I've been very lucky. I've worked with some amazing parents that they I know they care. They just have no idea how to navigate this new chapter of their lives too, right?
Of
It's
course, it's
different.
something new. The
Yeah, and so
dynamic changes and everything.
hmm and they love their child so much that they're searching for help because it's like I said, it's new to them. That none of them have had any other um, queer people in the family or friends, anyone that's super close, and so yeah, they've reached out, and so that's been also fulfilling and healing my inner child all in one.
Of course, but that's also amazing just to also see it from their side. You know what they're going through
Hmm.
because you have your mom and you've been through it yourself. And
Hmm.
when you are coming out, this is the only thing you think about. Like, okay, how are they going to take it? But you maybe don't
Hmm.
think they're going through their own process as well. Like you're not prepared for that.
Hmm.
And it's so amazing that they have somebody to talk with, like you, that's been going through all of that. So how great is that?
Yeah, I love it. Love, love, love.
Love, 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 love. I love it too. So, what would you say? Like, I know you've been like, oh, I wanted to come out earlier, but you've been holding
Hmm.
yourself back. So, do you have any advice to if anyone is listening? Like, if they're like, okay, and I need to tell them now.
Hmm.
Any tips on
I
the process?
You know, I think if you would have asked me like a year ago, it would have been like, come out sooner, you know, come out as early as you can, which I guess it kind of would still be the case. But like, I think, if someone out there is listening who is in the closet or questioning or, just wants to explore, I think come out and do it when you're ready because I know from personal experience, kind of with some group of friends, when you are outed or when you come out, someone else kind of tells on you. It sucks, right? And it's easy to say now when you're out to, oh, come out sooner. But if you don't feel ready at that age, there's nothing that someone can tell you to come out, right? Especially when you're feeling alone and not well supported. Um, so I think that's what I would say, right? It's just come out when you're ready because you will make a family, right? Like that's something everybody has this, right? But I think it's very, very prevalent in the gay community that you get to create your own family, right?
Mm.
When you come out of the closet, because unfortunately, for which is still the case to this day, right? No matter how we're in 2023 now, but there's still a lot of people that are homophobic and are not accepting and they're more conservative and just cut off their kids completely, right? And so there are people out there that will support you and will embrace you and love you just as you are, right? You don't have to change a single thing about you, which is, I guess, that is the main thing. That is what I would tell myself is not to change for anybody.
No, no.
Yeah.
You are worthy exactly as you are. Don't change for
Yeah.
anybody.
Oh yeah.
I think that's not just for gay people, for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just be yourself.
100%. Yeah, we all go through the same things. It's just a different flavor,
It's
you
a
know?
different flavor, yeah. For
It's the
here
same
in
issue.
Mexico, it's with chili and in yeah,
What's in the US? Fried?
yeah, probably fried. Yeah, I know. But love yourself for who you are.
The good and the bad. Everything is part of you.
Everything is part of you. Yeah,
Mhm.
that is so true. Is there anything else you want to share today?
I just want to say, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be on your podcast and to, get my message out there. Um, I love you very, very much, and I'm grateful for sure. And, we're on a mission to change the world for sure.
We
And so
are.
I love it.
Thank you so much, Martin, for sharing your story and for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge, your voice out there. I really appreciate you. So,
Thanks for having me, Torny. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thanks
and
for all
what's,
you do as well for holding
yeah,
space.
thank you. And where can we reach you?
My Instagram and TikTok are the same. They're at I am Martin Diaz.
Yes.
For both, shoot me a DM. They're always open.
Thank you so much, Martin Diaz, for coming on the show to share your voice and your message. I'm super grateful. And thank you so much for listening and for tuning in to this episode. Don't forget to share it with your friends. And you can also tag me on Instagram or you can send me a DM. It's Torny Wiggum. Have a beautiful day, and I will see you in the next episode. Adios!